All right, today we are diving into a truly mind-bending hypothesis, one that flips a lot of what we think we know about reality right on its head. It pulls together information theory, neuroscience, and philosophy to ask this one massive question. Is our consciousness just some kind of illusion cooked up by our brains, or is it something way, way bigger?
And this, right here, is the central mystery we're going to chase today. For centuries, we've just assumed that reality is built from physical stuff, atoms, energy, space, and time. But what if that's only half the picture? What if the universe, at its most fundamental level, isn't built from bits of matter, but from bits of information? Let's follow the evidence.
So our first clue pops up in a really surprising place: information theory. It turns out the very idea of information might not be as physical as we all assume. See, there's this kind of hidden layer to it, one that seems to play by a totally different set of rules than the rest of our universe.
Okay, so let's break this down. Any piece of information really has three parts. First, you've got the physical stuff: the ink on a page, the pixels on your screen, the electrical charges in a hard drive. Then there's the abstract meaning, the actual idea being communicated, like the concept of a tree. And finally, you have the rules, the code, like the English alphabet, that connects the physical ink to the abstract idea. Now here's the kicker. This new model suggests that only that first part, the physical stuff, is actually bound by the laws of physics.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The physical part, right, that's stuck in space-time, it can't go faster than the speed of light. But the abstract meaning, that's a whole different ballgame. I mean, think about the Pythagorean theorem. Where is it? It's not in a book in one library. It's a conceptual truth that kind of exists everywhere at once. It's not spatial, it's not temporal. It doesn't live in our physical world. It lives in a world of pure concept.
Okay, so park that idea of non-physical information for a second. Because while that mystery has been bubbling up in one corner, a whole other set of unsolved cases about the human mind has been piling up for decades. Reports that hint that consciousness itself might not be entirely physical either.
First, let's look at near-death experiences. You've got these cases, documented by serious researchers like Bruce Greyson, where people who are clinically unconscious, sometimes even brain-dead, report seeing and hearing real, verifiable things happening around them. It's called veridical perception. But what's truly staggering are the cases from Kenneth Ring and Sharon Cooper, where people who've been blind from birth report actually seeing things during their NDEs. A purely brain-based model of consciousness has a really tough time explaining that.
And then you have the incredible, painstaking work of Dr. Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia. He and his team have documented over 2,500 cases of young children who report incredibly detailed memories of past lives. Now, the wild part isn't just the stories. It's that in about 70% of these cases, the specific details, we're talking names, places, how someone died, can actually be verified and matched up to a real deceased person.
And that's really the bottom line here. Whether you're talking about NDEs or these past life memories, the reports are so numerous and they show up so consistently across totally different cultures that just waving them away as make-believe or mistakes, well, it starts to feel a bit unscientific. There's a pattern here, and that pattern is begging for an explanation.
And to round out our evidence file, we have research into what scientists call non-local sensing, or psi. This includes things like the famous Stargate project, a decades-long CIA-funded program looking into remote viewing, which, by the way, reported statistically significant results. And more recently, you've got these entanglement-like EEG studies showing that the brain activity of two people who are physically separated can become correlated. It suggests some kind of connection that just doesn't care about distance. Okay, so this is the turning point. This is where we put the pieces together. We have these two parallel mysteries, right? On one side, we've got the idea that the meaning of information isn't physical. And on the other, we have a mountain of evidence suggesting that consciousness can operate non-locally. So, what if these aren't two separate mysteries at all? What if they're two sides of the exact same coin? The link, the thing that ties it all together, is this wild idea of information without a medium. Both lines of investigation, from physics and from consciousness studies, are pointing to a level of reality where information or awareness just is. It exists on its own, without needing a physical substrate, whether that's ink on a page or neurons firing in a brain. All right, so just look at this table for a second, because this is it. This is the aha moment. In the top row from information theory, you have abstract meaning, which isn't bound by space-time. And in the bottom row from consciousness studies, you have non-local awareness,
which also doesn't seem to be bound by spacetime. I mean, the parallel is just stunning. It's like two different fields of science accidentally discovered the same continent from opposite shores.
So how do we even begin to wrap our heads around this? Well, there's a really great analogy. Think of the brain as a radio. We usually think the brain creates consciousness, just like we might think a speaker creates music. But this model says, no, the brain is more like a radio receiver. The music, or in this case consciousness, is already out there, being broadcast on all frequencies. The brain just tunes into a specific station.
And what's so powerful about this is that this connection lets us build a completely new framework, a new map of the mind, if you will, that can finally take all of these strange, anomalous reports and organize them into a single, logical structure that actually makes sense. And that map is called the three-mode model of consciousness. The idea is that our awareness can operate in three distinct modes: a fundamental, underlying state, our normal, everyday waking state, and a third, transitional or paranormal state, where we get a peek at that deeper level.
So, Mode 1, fundamental consciousness, is the baseline reality. It's that universal radio broadcast we were talking about. It's a field of pure, non-local, timeless awareness that exists completely independent of any single brain or body. It's the source signal.
Mode 2 is us, right now. It's our normal waking consciousness. And in this mode, our brain, specifically something called the salience network, acts as a powerful filter. It basically narrows down that infinite broadcast of fundamental awareness to just the tiny sliver of information we need to survive. Where's the coffee? Is that a car coming? It's consciousness localized and focused for life in the physical world.
And Mode 3, paranormal consciousness, is what happens when that biological filter gets relaxed. In states like deep meditation or dreaming or a near-death experience, the brain's survival-obsessed grip loosens up a bit, and this allows for broader access to that fundamental field, which is exactly where all those anomalous experiences, the NDEs, the psi stuff, are thought to come from. They're basically glimpses beyond the filter.
So here's the crucial point. If this model gives us a coherent way to explain so much weird data that mainstream science struggles with, what does that imply about the very nature of reality itself? I mean, it forces us to rethink, well, everything.
And this slide, right here, brings our whole investigation full circle. We can reframe the entire model of consciousness using the language of information theory we started with. Fundamental consciousness is that non-local informational field. Waking consciousness is that same information but constrained and filtered by a physical, neural system. And those paranormal states, that's just what it feels like to temporarily access that non-local field when the physical constraints are dialed down.
Okay, now we have to be super clear about something. This is a speculative model. It's a hypothesis, not a proven conclusion. But the pattern is undeniable. The way it weaves together information theory, clinical reports from NDEs, reincarnation research, and psi phenomena, it's just too coherent to ignore. It absolutely justifies serious, open-minded exploration.
Which leaves us with this one last, provocative thought to chew on. If the fundamental building block of reality isn't matter, but meaningful information, then what does that make consciousness? Is it just some random byproduct that happens in the universe? Or could it be the very stuff the universe is made of?